Bruce Miller sat in his study, the dim glow of the desk lamp casting shadows across his office. He had always been a methodical man, used to keeping his life in order. But tonight something was different. A strange feeling tugged at his gut as he sifted through the stack of papers in the drawer. His mind was elsewhere, distracted by a quiet sense of unease that had lingered for weeks. As his hand brushed against the corner of a file, something fell from the stack. It was a small white box. A test. A pregnancy test. His heart stopped. His blood turned cold as he stared at it, his eyes locked onto the pink lines staring back at him. Positive. The words echoed in his mind, but it didn't make sense. Not in the slightest. Bruce had undergone a vasectomy 3 years ago. Amber, his wife, had been fully aware of it. They'd even discussed it in detail, agreeing that it was the right decision. Yet here was this test, undeniably proving that Amber was pregnant. The air around him felt heavy, suffocating. How could this be? He slid the test into his hand and examined it one more time, hoping, desperately, that it was some kind of mistake. But no. There was no denying it. The test was undeniably positive, and there was only one conclusion. Amber had lied to him. The room seemed to close in around him as his mind raced. What had happened? Who was the father? The thought of Amber being unfaithful hit him like a physical blow. It was a possibility he'd never considered, but now, it seemed undeniable. His world was unraveling piece by piece. Bruce stood up from his desk, his mind still clouded with disbelief. He had to know the truth. He couldn't just sit idly by and let this lie fester. The room was spinning as he walked toward the living room, the test still clenched tightly in his fist. His footsteps felt heavier than usual as he paced back and forth. He tried to calm himself, to think logically, but the fear gnawing at his stomach wouldn't allow it. He needed answers. Suddenly his phone buzzed, breaking the silence. It was a message from his best friend, James Carter. *, we need to talk. I have something important to tell you. *. Bruce stared at the message, a sense of dread creeping over him. What did James know? Was he somehow involved in this? His mind spun with the possibilities, but one thing was clear: he couldn't do this alone. He needed someone he trusted, someone who could help him find the truth. Without wasting another moment, Bruce dialed James' number. "James, I need your help," Bruce said, his voice shaking. "I found something that doesn't make sense. Amber, she's pregnant, but it's not mine. I don't know what to do." There was a pause on the other end of the line. James' voice was steady when he finally replied. "We'll figure this out, Bruce. You don't have to go through this alone. I know a person who can help. A private investigator. Someone who's been through things like this before." Bruce nodded, his mind already racing ahead. "Yes, please. Get her on the phone. I need answers." He could hear the concern in James' voice as he said, "I'll make the call. Just hang in there." As Bruce hung up the phone, a wave of uncertainty washed over him. He had no idea where this investigation would lead, but he knew one thing for sure: nothing would ever be the same again. The next few days passed in a blur. Bruce didn't speak much to Amber. He couldn't. Every time he looked at her, the image of that pregnancy test flooded his mind. The woman he had trusted, the woman he had built a life with, had been hiding something from him. He couldn't understand why. Then, on a rainy afternoon, his phone buzzed again. It was James. "She's ready to meet," James said. "Her name is Helen Matthews. She's a former FBI agent. If anyone can get to the bottom of this, it's her." Bruce's heart raced as he processed the information. A former FBI agent? That was serious. But it was exactly what he needed. He needed someone who could see through the lies, someone who could uncover the truth without hesitation. They arranged to meet at a small cafe downtown, a place where no one would recognize them. When Bruce arrived, he saw her immediately. Helen Matthews sat at a table in the back, her sharp eyes scanning the room. She looked like someone who was used to being in control, someone who could handle whatever came her way. As Bruce walked toward her, she stood up, offering him a firm handshake. "Mr. Miller," she said, her voice low but confident. "James has told me about your situation. I'm here to help." Bruce nodded, taking a seat across from her. He didn't have time for small talk. "I need to know the truth. Amber's pregnant, and I know it's not mine. I need someone who can find out who the father is and why she's been hiding this from me." Helen's expression remained neutral, but Bruce could see a flicker of understanding in her eyes. "I can help you with that. But this won't be easy. If you're ready to uncover the truth, there's no turning back." Bruce didn't hesitate. "I'm ready. I need to know what's going on." Helen nodded. "Then we'll start the investigation immediately. But be warned, Mr. Miller. The truth often brings more questions than answers. Bruce took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words. He didn't know what he was getting into, but he was certain of one thing. His life was about to change forever. The days that followed were filled with tension. Bruce barely slept, consumed by the thought of what he might learn. He found himself constantly looking over his shoulder, wondering if Amber knew he was watching her. His mind was clouded with thoughts of betrayal, and every time Amber came near him, he felt a pang of suspicion gnawing at his chest. Helen Matthews was relentless in her investigation. She worked quickly, gathering information on Amber and anyone connected to her. Bruce provided Helen with everything he could: Amber's contacts, her social media profiles, even the records from their home security cameras, anything that might shed light on her activities. But the more Helen dug, the more disturbing the findings became. A week later, Helen called Bruce to meet at the same cafe. As he sat down across from her, he immediately noticed the serious expression on her face. This wasn't going to be good news. "I've got something," Helen said, her voice grave. "I found a man named Daniel Brooks. He's a tennis coach and it looks like he's been having an affair with Amber. I've tracked his movements and I can confirm they've been in contact multiple times in the past year. But it's not just an affair, Bruce. This is far worse than I expected." Bruce's heart pounded as Helen continued. "Amber and Daniel are involved in something much bigger. They've been working together, planning this pregnancy, and manipulating you every step of the way. I believe Amber was never going to keep the baby. She planned to use this as leverage to trap you." Bruce couldn't believe what he was hearing. His mind raced, trying to process it all. "What do you mean, trap me?" "Amber isn't just after your money," Helen replied. "She's been looking for a way to secure her future, no matter the cost. The pregnancy was just the beginning. She and Daniel have been working together on a financial scam. Daniel has been embezzling funds from the tennis club he works for, and Amber is involved. She knew exactly how to play her cards, use you to gain trust, then use the pregnancy to manipulate you into doing what she wanted." Bruce's world spun. It was worse than he had imagined. Not only had Amber betrayed him emotionally, but she had also been plotting against him for financial gain. "We need to gather evidence," Helen said, her tone decisive. "This won't be easy, but I'm going to get to the bottom of this. We'll expose everything from the affair to the financial crimes." Bruce nodded, a feeling of determination rising within him. "Do whatever it takes. I need to know everything. I'm not letting her get away with this." Helen gave him a reassuring look. "We'll get there. But you have to trust me. This won't be a simple investigation. The deeper we go, the more dangerous it could get. Are you ready for that?" Bruce didn't hesitate. "I'm ready. I have to be." In the days that followed, Helen's investigation uncovered even more. She discovered that Amber had been siphoning money from joint accounts, funneling it into hidden bank accounts under a false identity. Daniel, too, was exposed for his role in the embezzlement scheme. Together, they had been living a double life, pretending to be innocent while plotting their next move. But it wasn't just the financial scam that troubled Bruce. He started receiving strange messages, threats, warnings to stop looking into Amber's past. He could feel the walls closing in on him, the danger becoming more real with each passing day. Someone wanted him to back off. One night, after leaving work, Bruce found a note waiting for him in his car. It was brief, ominous, and to the point: "stop or else." His heart pounded in his chest as he stared at the note. Was this from Amber? Or someone else connected to her and Daniel? He had no way of knowing, but he couldn't back down now. He had already come too far. The truth had to come out. He immediately called Helen, his voice shaking. "I found a note in my car. Someone's threatening me to stop digging. What should I do?" Helen's response was quick and measured. "It's likely from Amber or Daniel's associates. This is exactly what I was warning you about. They'll do anything to protect themselves. But you can't let fear control you. Keep pushing forward. We're close." Bruce clenched his fists, determination flaring within him. "I'm not stopping. They can't scare me. I need this over, Helen. I need to know the truth." Helen paused for a moment as if considering something. "I have a plan. But we need to move fast. I'll set up a meeting with Daniel. If we can catch him in the act, we can use it to bring him down. We have to get the proof we need." Bruce felt a surge of adrenaline. The thought of confronting Daniel, of finally putting an end to this nightmare, gave him a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in weeks. "Let's do it," he said, his voice firm. "I'm ready." Over the next few days, Helen set up a sting operation. With the help of a few trusted contacts, They arranged a meeting with Daniel under the guise of negotiating a settlement for the embezzlement. It was risky, but it was their only shot at getting the evidence they needed. The night of the meeting, Bruce waited anxiously in the car, his heart pounding as he watched Daniel walk into the restaurant where the meeting was set up. Everything had been carefully planned. Helen and her team would be in position, ready to capture the conversation on hidden cameras. As the hours passed, Bruce grew more tense. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to go wrong. His gut told him that this meeting would change everything, but whether it would be for better or worse he had no idea. Then, as if on cue, his phone buzzed. It was a text from Helen. *, we've got him. Bruce's pulse quickened. The moment of truth had arrived. Bruce's hands trembled as he stared at the phone screen. We've got him. The words echoed in his mind, but a part of him was still reluctant to believe that this nightmare was finally coming to an end. The past few weeks had been filled with one revelation after another, each more devastating than the last. He could hardly believe that everything Amber had been hiding was about to come to light. The night had taken a dark turn, and now, it seemed as though everything was going to unravel in one swift motion. Bruce glanced at the restaurant where Daniel had entered. The lights were dim inside, but he could clearly see through the windows that Daniel was talking with someone at a corner booth. He was too far away to hear the conversation, but Bruce knew that this moment, this meeting, was crucial. This was their chance to finally expose everything Amber and Daniel had been hiding. Minutes passed, each one dragging Bruce deeper into a mix of anxiety and anticipation. He couldn't stop thinking about the note he had found in his car. He couldn't shake the feeling that whoever was behind the threats was still watching, waiting for the right moment to strike. He gripped the steering wheel tightly, trying to push those thoughts aside. Then his phone buzzed again. This time it was a video message from Helen. Bruce tapped the screen, and a video of Daniel and another man appeared. The man sitting across from Daniel was a lawyer, a man Bruce recognized. It was someone Amber had been working with closely for years, but he had no idea just how deep the connection went. Bruce's eyes narrowed as he watched the video, the footage clearly showing Daniel and the lawyer discussing the details of their scam. They were talking about laundering money, hiding assets, and covering up their tracks. There was no doubt anymore. Amber was fully involved. It wasn't just an affair. It was an elaborate scheme, a web of lies and deception. Bruce watched in silence as the conversation continued. It was all coming together now, the affair, the pregnancy, the financial fraud. The dots connected, each one pointing back to Amber. His heart raced as he realized the extent of what Amber had done. She had been plotting this for years. She had used him as a pawn in her scheme, hoping to secure her future and leave him in the dust. The video cut off abruptly. Bruce could feel his pulse pounding in his ears as he looked back at the restaurant. Daniel was standing up now, exchanging something with the lawyer, a stack of papers. Bruce's stomach twisted as he realized what it was. Evidence. They were covering their tracks, finalizing their escape. Bruce snapped back to reality. He had to act quickly. He dialed Helen's number, his voice frantic. They're making their move. I saw it. What do we do next? Bruce's heart pounded as he spoke. Stay where you are, Helen's calm voice answered. I'm on my way. Just hold tight. As Bruce waited in his car, his mind spun with all the information he had just learned. Amber's betrayal was worse than he could have ever imagined. It wasn't just an affair. It wasn't just a child that wasn't his. It was a calculated plan, one that involved not only Daniel but others as well. They had used him to cover their tracks, manipulate him into believing everything was fine while they lined their pockets with stolen money. Bruce clenched his fists. He wasn't going to let them get away with this. Not now. Not after everything they had taken from him. Moments later, he saw the flash of headlights as Helen's car pulled into the parking lot. She got out quickly, her expression focused. Without a word, she approached Bruce's car, a determined look in her eyes. We've got enough to go public with, she said as she climbed into the passenger seat. We'll need to go to the police with this evidence, but we have to move fast. Daniel's not going to sit idly by. He'll fight back. Bruce nodded, still absorbing everything he had seen. He didn't know what the future held, but one thing was certain. Amber and Daniel's lies were about to be exposed. Together, Bruce and Helen drove to the police station, their hearts heavy with the knowledge that this wasn't just about the affair anymore. This was about taking down an entire criminal network. They had the evidence. They had the proof. But it would be a long, hard battle to make sure Amber and Daniel were held accountable. At the police station, Helen presented the evidence, videos, documents, and bank records, laying out the entire scheme. The officers were shocked at the extent of the fraud, and even more so by the fact that Amber was directly involved. The interrogation room was cold, sterile. Bruce sat across from Daniel, who was now in custody, his once confident demeanor shattered. The smugness he had exuded before was gone, replaced by a man who realized that the walls were closing in. "You don't have to do this, Daniel," Bruce said, his voice steady. "Amber played me for a fool. But you had a choice." Daniel didn't respond immediately. His eyes flickered with a mix of guilt and fear. But finally he spoke. "I didn't have a choice either. She had me cornered. She promised me everything, money, power. All I had to do was help her, and she said she'd make sure we both walked away with everything." Bruce clenched his jaw. It was clear now, Amber had used Daniel just as much as she had used him. "Where's Amber?" Bruce demanded, his voice firm. "Where is she now?" Daniel hesitated before speaking, his voice low. "She's already gone. She's too smart for you, Bruce. She had a head start." Bruce's stomach churned as the weight of Daniel's words hit him. Amber had already disappeared. She had planned this escape all along, anticipating the moment Bruce would uncover the truth. Bruce stood in the sterile interrogation room, the weight of Daniel's confession hanging in the air like a heavy fog. His mind raced, trying to piece together what he had just learned. Amber wasn't just a manipulative wife, she was a criminal mastermind, and now she was on the run. "Where is she, Daniel?" Bruce pressed again, his voice tight with frustration. "You can't just leave me hanging with all this. You owe me something." Daniel shifted in his chair, his face pale. He glanced at the door as if checking for anyone listening. Then, with a resigned sigh, he leaned forward. "I don't know exactly where she is, but I know how she operates. She'll be heading to the accounts, the ones she set up under false names. That's her escape route. She's not just running from you, Bruce. She's running from everything, from the law, from the fraud charges. But she knows how to cover her tracks. She's always been one step ahead." Bruce's fists clenched as the reality of the situation hit him. Amber had been planning this escape for a long time. She had already prepared everything: new identities, secret accounts, and a foolproof getaway. His mind raced, calculating the next steps. He needed to act fast. If he didn't, Amber would disappear, and he would never be able to get the justice he wanted. "I'm going after her," Bruce said, his voice cold. "I'm not letting her get away with this." Helen, who had been listening silently from the other side of the room, stepped forward. "Bruce, we can't just run off half-cocked. This isn't a simple chase. Amber has resources. She's got connections. We need a solid plan." Bruce nodded, but his determination didn't waver. "I don't care. She's taken everything from me, from my family. I'm not going to sit here and wait for her to disappear." Helen's expression softened. She understood the pain behind his words. "I know you're angry, but you need to think clearly. We'll track the accounts, start with the bank records, and follow the money. We have to find her before she's long gone. I'll work with my contacts to get the info we need." Bruce took a deep breath, forcing himself to calm down. The fire that had burned inside him was now tempered by the reality of the situation. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about justice. And he wasn't going to stop until Amber faced the consequences of what she had done. The next few hours were a blur of activity. Helen worked tirelessly, calling in favors and pulling every string she could to get access to Amber's financial records. Bruce sat at a small desk in the corner of the room, his mind whirling with thoughts of what he had to do next. The adrenaline that had fueled him earlier had given way to a cold determination. It was well past midnight when Helen finally approached him. "We've got something," she said, her voice low but confident. "Amber's been moving money, large amounts, through a series of offshore accounts. I traced one of them to a private airport outside the city. It looks like she's planning to leave the country." Bruce's heart skipped a beat. This was it. This was his chance to catch her before she disappeared forever. "I'm going," he said, standing up. "I'll go to the airport. You keep tracking the money. We'll hit her from both sides." Helen nodded. "Be careful. If she's already made arrangements to leave, she'll have people watching her back. You can't go in blind." "I'll be fine," Bruce said, his voice hard. "She doesn't know what's coming." The drive to the private airport felt like an eternity. Bruce's mind raced with thoughts of Amber, of all the lies, all the manipulation. He could barely comprehend how far she had gone to deceive him. And yet, despite everything, he couldn't shake the lingering feeling of betrayal. When he arrived at the airport, the night was quiet, the lights casting long shadows over the tarmac. Bruce's heart pounded in his chest as he stepped out of the car, scanning the area. He was on edge, every sense heightened, waiting for something, anything, that would tell him where she was. He moved quickly, slipping past security and heading toward the hangars. He had no idea where Amber might be, but he knew one thing: if she was here, she wasn't going to get away without a fight. As he crept through the dimly lit corridor, his phone buzzed. It was a message from Helen. She's gone. I tracked her flight. She's on a plane to a private island in the Caribbean. We're too late. Bruce's heart sank. He stood frozen for a moment, staring at the message in disbelief. She had outsmarted him. Amber was already gone. For a long moment, Bruce stood in the darkness, his thoughts a storm of frustration and anger. He had been so close to bringing her to justice. But now she was slipping through his fingers and there was nothing he could do to stop her. He turned and walked back to his car, the weight of defeat pressing down on him. But as he opened the door and slid into the driver's seat, a new determination began to rise within him. Amber may have escaped for now, but this wasn't over. He wouldn't stop. Not until he had exposed her for who she really was. Not until he had the truth. He fired up the engine and drove off into the night, his mind set on one thing. He would find Amber wherever she went. And when he did, there would be no escape. Bruce's mind buzzed as he drove through the night, the quiet hum of the engine and the rhythmic passing of streetlights doing little to calm his racing thoughts. Amber had taken everything from him, his trust, his peace of mind, and now, it seemed, even his sense of control. She was gone. For now, at least. But Bruce refused to accept defeat. Helen's message had been a blow, but it also fueled the fire inside him. He wasn't about to let her slip away. Not this time. Amber had made a dangerous mistake by thinking she could disappear forever. He would hunt her down no matter where she tried to hide. His phone buzzed again, cutting through his thoughts. This time it was James. Bruce, James said, his voice urgent. I know you're pissed, but we need to talk. This isn't over. You're going to need more than just a plane ticket to find her. Bruce's jaw tightened. I'm going after her, James. I'm not stopping. I get it, but you're missing something important, James continued. You're going in blind. You've got the financial records, but Amber has too many connections. She's got people who'll protect her no matter how far she goes. Bruce slammed his fist against the steering wheel. I don't care about her connections. I just want the truth. I need her to pay for what she's done. I know, Bruce, but we need a plan. We can't just chase her down blindly. If you want to make sure she pays, you need more than just anger, you need leverage. Trust me, I'm not telling you to back off. But you need to approach this smart. Bruce exhaled sharply, his fingers gripping the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. James was right. If he acted recklessly, Amber would slip through his fingers again. He had to think this through. He couldn't let his emotions drive the bus. Okay, Bruce finally said, his voice strained. What do you suggest? First, we need to figure out where she's going. Helen's right, she's probably heading to that private island in the Caribbean. But you can't just book a flight and expect to catch her. She's got people there, local contacts, private security. We need intel. I'll make some calls. In the meantime, you should focus on getting more evidence. She's been setting herself up for this escape for years. There's got to be something she missed. Bruce's grip on the wheel loosened. He felt a flicker of hope. Maybe James was right. Maybe he didn't need to rush into this blindly. He had to outsmart her, just like she had outsmarted him for so long. I'll meet you at the office in an hour, Bruce said. Let's get this done. The office was quiet when Bruce arrived. It was late, but James was already there, poring over a stack of papers. Bruce sat down across from him, the weight of the past few days crashing down on him. So, what have you got? Bruce asked, trying to focus. James leaned back in his chair. I've got a contact who can get us access to the island. It's not going to be easy, but I know someone who can arrange a meeting. If we can get there, we might be able to find out more about what she's been planning. The local authorities are likely in her pocket, but we'll be able to get in through the back door. Bruce's mind spun as he absorbed the information. What's the catch? The catch is that the island is remote. The kind of place where no one asks questions. You won't be able to rely on the authorities for backup. You'll be on your own. Bruce's stomach twisted. The thought of going to a place like that, alone and vulnerable, made him uneasy. But he couldn't back down now. He had come this far. We go in, get the evidence, and get out, Bruce said, his voice firm. We're not playing around anymore. James nodded. Exactly. But remember, Bruce, we're dealing with people who aren't afraid to get their hands dirty. This isn't just about Amber anymore. There's a whole network behind her. If you want to get her, you'll need to be careful. Bruce stared at the map James had laid out on the table. The island, secluded and surrounded by crystal-clear waters, looked peaceful on the surface. But Bruce knew better. Beneath that tranquility was a storm of secrets and lies that he had to uncover. "I'll do whatever it takes," Bruce said, his voice steady. "I won't stop until I get her." The following day, Bruce and James flew out of the city, bound for the Caribbean. The flight was tense, each passing minute reminding Bruce of the stakes. His mind was sharp, but it felt like he was walking into a trap. Amber was already several steps ahead of him. The question was, how long would it take for him to catch up? As their plane touched down on a small airstrip near the island, Bruce felt a knot in his stomach tighten. This was it. He was about to face Amber and the people who had been helping her hide for so long. James clapped him on the back. "You ready for this?" Bruce didn't answer right away. He just stared at the island in the distance, the lush green trees and white sand beaches hiding everything he had learned over the past weeks. The people who had been involved in this, Daniel, Amber, and the rest, had made their move. Now it was time for him to make his own. "I'm ready," Bruce finally said, his voice filled with resolve. They disembarked from the plane, and as they walked toward the small building where their contact was waiting, Bruce's mind raced. He couldn't let Amber escape again. He wouldn't. The contact, a man named Javier, was waiting in a small hut by the water. His tan skin and casual demeanor gave little away, but Bruce could tell he was no stranger to the underworld. Javier greeted them with a curt nod and immediately began explaining the details. "Amber's staying in a villa on the far side of the island," Javier said. "It's heavily guarded, but I can get you access. But you have to be careful, she's got people watching her back. They're trained and they won't hesitate to hurt you." Bruce nodded, his jaw tight. He had been through too much already. There was no turning back. "What's the plan?" Bruce asked. Javier pointed to a narrow path leading through the trees. "There's a back entrance to the villa. We can slip in that way, but it's a risk. Once you're in, you'll need to move fast. Amber's not going to just hand you the truth." Bruce clenched his fists. "She'll regret thinking she could get away with this." As they made their way through the dense jungle, Bruce's heart raced. Every rustle of leaves, every distant sound, made him feel like he was being watched. He couldn't afford to hesitate. He had to stay focused, stay ahead of the game. They reached the back entrance of the villa. Bruce peered through the dense foliage, his pulse pounding. There were guards posted at every corner, their eyes scanning the surroundings. But Bruce wasn't looking for them. He was looking for one person. Amber. Bruce's breath came in short, steady bursts as he crouched in the dense foliage, his eyes scanning the villa's perimeter. His fingers brushed the cool metal of the gun he had tucked into his waistband. He didn't want to use it, but he wasn't about to let anyone stop him from confronting Amber. He had come too far to turn back now. James, standing beside him, whispered, "We move in fast, Bruce. In and out. Get the proof we need, then we leave." Bruce nodded, his heart pounding in his chest. This was it. The moment he had been waiting for, the moment he would finally confront the woman who had destroyed his life. He couldn't let fear or hesitation slow him down. He had a single goal, to bring Amber to justice. They moved swiftly through the jungle, sticking to the shadows, using the cover of the thick trees to conceal their movements. As they neared the villa, Bruce could see the armed guards positioned around the property, their eyes scanning the horizon, unaware of the two men creeping toward them. Bruce felt the tension in his muscles tighten, the familiar rush of adrenaline flooding his system. He glanced at James, who nodded. It was time. They moved quickly, darting from one shadow to another, until they were just a few feet away from the back door. Javier had given them the key to a small side entrance, one that led directly into the villa. Bruce's mind raced as he turned the key in the lock. He had to be careful, one mistake and everything would fall apart. The door creaked open. They slipped inside and Bruce's senses heightened, the hairs on the back of his neck standing on end. Every sound, every movement felt amplified in the silence. The air inside the villa was thick with tension. Amber was somewhere in here and Bruce was getting closer. They moved through the villa quietly, following the narrow hallways that wound through the large, luxurious home. The floors were polished, the walls adorned with expensive art. But none of that mattered to Bruce. He wasn't here for the luxury. He was here for Amber. After a few minutes of stealthy movement, they reached a door at the end of a long hallway. Bruce paused, holding his breath, listening for any sounds from the other side. He could feel the weight of the moment settling in, the enormity of what he was about to do. He was about to face Amber, the woman he had once loved, the woman who had betrayed him in ways he couldn't yet fully understand. With a single glance at James, Bruce nodded. James reached for the handle and pushed the door open. The room beyond was dimly lit, the curtains drawn shut to block out the sun. Amber stood by a large window, staring out at the sea beyond. She didn't hear them enter, her back turned, her figure silhouetted against the light. For a moment, Bruce just watched her, the woman who had shattered his world. "Amber?" he said, his voice cold and firm. She froze, her body tensing at the sound of his voice. Slowly, she turned to face him, her expression a mixture of surprise and something darker, defiance. "Bruce," she said, her voice smooth, almost mocking. "I knew you'd come for me eventually." James stepped forward, but Bruce held up a hand to stop him. This was between him and Amber. "You thought you could just disappear," Bruce said, his voice low. "That you could run away from everything you've done. You thought I wouldn't find you. But here we are." Amber's lips curled into a tight smile. "You always were too predictable, Bruce. But you don't understand, do you? This was never about you. It was about survival. You were just a means to an end." Bruce's stomach churned at her words. How could she be so cold? How could she look him in the eye and say something like that after everything they had shared? "You're right," he said, his voice steady, but his anger simmering beneath the surface. "It was never about me. It was about using me, using our marriage, our life together, as a cover for your lies. But that ends today." Amber took a step toward him, her gaze sharp. "You think you're the only one who's suffered? You think I did this for fun? I did it because I had to. You were a pawn in my game, Bruce. Just like everyone else." Bruce took a deep breath, forcing himself to stay calm. This was it. The moment of reckoning. "I'm not a pawn anymore. And neither are you. This ends now." Before Amber could respond, Bruce moved quickly, grabbing a folder from the table beside her. He tossed it to her, watching her eyes widen as she caught it. "Take a look," Bruce said. "It's all here. The evidence of your financial scams, the offshore accounts, the money you've been stealing, the affair with Daniel. Everything you've tried so hard to bury." Amber's hand trembled slightly as she flipped through the papers. Her eyes flickered with disbelief before narrowing with anger. "You think this changes anything?" she hissed, her voice trembling with fury. "I have people who will protect me. You'll never bring me down, Bruce. You'll never." "I don't need to bring you down," Bruce interrupted. "The law will do that for me. You've already lost." Amber's face twisted into a scowl, the mask of calm she had been wearing cracking for the first time. She took a step back, almost as if she was considering running. But she didn't. Not yet. James stepped forward, his presence imposing. "You're finished, Amber. The evidence is already with the authorities. There's nowhere left for you to hide." For a moment, Amber stood still, her eyes darting between Bruce and James. Then, with a sharp intake of breath, she smiled, a bitter, twisted smile. "I never thought you'd be the one to expose me," she said, her voice low. "You were always so naive, Bruce. You didn't even know who I really was." Bruce didn't answer. He didn't need to. The truth was in front of him, undeniable. As Amber turned to leave the room, Bruce watched her carefully. He couldn't stop her, she was still a force to be reckoned with even now. But he had won. The game was over. Amber's world of lies had come crashing down, and she had nowhere left to run. And for Bruce that was enough.